there, Wanderers. Okay. Ah. We are going to be continuing the current challenge of one map, 100 days, one life. Again, like I said, after 100 days, I can now use a bed to respawn, but only once. So I get a new life every 50 days after 100. Little update, what we're doing here. I have made myself a smelter, auto smelter, just a really basic, simple, totally ding-dong design. I don't think you get any XP out of doing this. I don't see my XP bar going up, but that's not really what I'm going for. Um, so much that I am actually concerned about losing out. What I am actually focused on is just, um, oh, look, we got a new trader. And he's offering me dingle, basic dingle. That's kind of sad. So yeah, we're just farming up some wood. I think I'm going to go ahead and take this session and go and explore um, the rest of the map because the one map challenge is progressed by filling out the map, and then I have a choice depending on how lucky I feel um, or what my mood is, because that's all it's about. Minecraft is nothing but the vibes, nothing but the vibes. Kind of hard to say without my upper teeth in. I actually haven't worn my dentures in almost a month and a half now. I don't really like them. They. It's not that they feel weird or anything in my mouth. It's just that um, for what they are and how they were made, by what they were made, um, it was like they don't stay in very good. I was excited to get my upper teeth replaced um, because then that means I could eat more crunchy foods again. But then I realized as I waited the 2 to 3 months for the dentures to come in that I really didn't like crunchy foods all that much. Um, that it had a tendency to make me anxious. Crunchy foods, it's a funny thing too because people will say that crunchy foods are, people will select crunchy foods when they're anxious, and anxious people eat crunchy foods. Um, and crunchy foods make them anxious. I was getting in there somewhere. So, yeah, my teeth were basically made um, on, insurance and not the best insurance, unfortunately, because I is a broke artist type. I'm just going to grab a bed. Like, again, that's just so that we can fast travel through the nightfall. Um, yeah, I don't care. It's not going to be any. I mean, this is kind of basically a YOLO game, you know? Literally, you do only live once. Uh, so it's like, go for it. If it happens, it happens. I'll just start a new world. That'll be a problem for me. All right. My wife ordered me the new Cyberpunk Red single player mode book and PDF. So I'll be, now available for free. Designers and Dragons Origins Secret Door. Oh, sick. Um, so yeah, I have been threatening to get back full bore into tabletop role playing games. Here's the funny thing. I have been playing Dungeons and Dragons and D&D style type games since about the late 70s, early 80s. 1981, the Moldvay Basic Edition book came out. My first games played were on a playground in my grade school, um, a Catholic grade school of all things. And the rules we used were the Holmes Edition, Blue Book, basic rules. And it was lots of fun. They were a lot of fun. Unfortunately, those rules were not for sale by the time Christmas came around. So when my mom went to order it for us, uh, we got it from Toys R Us as the red box. And when I say we, I mean my brother and I. We both played. We each got our own set of rules. We told her that we would like to have our own set of rules because each of us were going to be reading different parts of the book and we were going to be dungeon mastering for each other. And that's exactly how we played our games. You could almost say it was a proto. uh, GM-less game system. But the way we did it was on my turn, he was the dungeon master, and on his character's turn, I was the dungeon master. And even though we all had knowledge of what was happening in the world around our characters, we made sure that our characters behaved and made choices as though they didn't know what was going on. And for a couple of, preteens to manage that kind of honesty and maturity, I do actually find it to be a very mature thing because a lot of times, um, and I've experienced this with, used to go to Barnes and Nobles with my kids all the time for reading time, and I can remember in many a reading circles how, kids about my age that I was when I began playing D&D, if they knew what the ending was, they just blurted it out and spoil it. But kids are kids. I mean, I didn't have a problem with it. I don't know. I have never had a problem with spoilers. In fact, the only time that I ever started, knocking people for spoilers was shortly after uh, the River Song era entered Doctor Who with David Tennant, and she would say spoilers, and then he would, of course, would say spoilers. And it was more like a teasing nod than it was actually an admonishing people for divulging information. I know some people are super fucking precious about it, and I don't blame that. I don't shame that. I mean, definitely for sure, yeah. In a movie theater, I'm not going to be that guy who shouts at the top of his lungs, "The butler did it!" And that's only just one version of the movie Clue. Um, but So yeah. Anyway, so yeah, playing D&D in tandem is what I would say probably the best description of it would be. And it was a lot of fun. I did play RPGs more like a board game. I love procedural, mechanically driven RPGs. Not to say that I like a lot of crunch. I like simple interpretive rules and I would say elegant rules is what I would say. I choose elegance over crunch all the time. And when I say elegance, I'm talking about like the D20 roll over system. That determines your hits, that determines your saves, that determines all kinds of things, except in the Moldvay, Holmes, and Cook editions of D&D, and also the Gygax editions of D&D. That wasn't the only die you rolled. You rolled D12s, you rolled D6s, you rolled D10s, you rolled D8s, mostly for damage dice. I never really liked the idea of damage dice in tabletop role-playing games or in adventure games in general. And that's what I like to really call them because, like I said, when I played D&D, I played it almost like a board game, but without a board. And um, my classmate that introduced us, and it was my brother and myself and a couple of other of our friends to the game, tried to explain it. It's like that. I asked, well, where's the board? And he said, of course, well, there is no board. Well, technically there is. It's a map. The dungeon master has a map of the area that you're exploring and adventuring in. But the map can, and I said, oh, well, how big does the map have to be? And I was already thinking about making games of my own and setting up adventures of my own. Um, and at the time, I think Hero Quest was out, or there was a game called Dungeon that was out that was, I think, based on D&D. Um, I vaguely remember playing Hero Quest and Dungeon and thinking to myself that, this is pretty cool. I'd really like to do more of this. Break in the door, slay the monster, take the treasure, get experience points, and level up. Um, Number go up was kind of my first intro to that, and I liked that idea. But also, skill level go up. That's really what it is. Hey, there's some pine trees out there. We want those. Um, so yeah, so I did board game D&D quite a bit, and not really intentionally. So yeah, when I had my mind blown by the idea that, well, yeah, the D&D board can be as big as an entire world represented on a little piece of paper. Um, I thought that was fantastic. Of course, everything at that time for me had to be simulationist. I had a real heavy simulationist mind, so I wanted things to be as accurate as possible honestly, if it was not for Dungeons and Dragons, I would not have gotten into architecture or industrial design or architectural design, to be more specific. Um, I would not have felt the compulsion to, uh, consume every book in my local libraries on, medieval structures and what makes a castle, what makes a keep, what's the difference between the two, how would each apply to, the state of affairs in that world, blah blah blah, yada yada. I got so far into um, Renaissance history, which was eerily funny because I think honestly, I don't know if my dad ever got into D&D. We kind of lost touch after a while after my mom and he separated, and a little bit more personal history here. But the point being, the relevance of that statement is that my dad would have probably been somebody who would have really have loved playing D&D, and I hope that in his lifetime he actually did get to play some Dungeons and Dragons with somebody. I know he had a girlfriend for a while, and I mean, I think it was actually his stepdaughter. It was her daughter, and I don't know if they got married or not. My wife has the documentation on all that. She's she is my stalwart when it comes to keeping records and histories together. An amazing brain, really. Um, but yeah, so I don't know. I think that when I think about the decades that were basically just ignored, where we could have that could have been something we could have done through the post, play by post. That was something that I wanted to try out. At the time, it was pretty expensive. Now, when you say play by post, they literally mean like, no, that was a bad choice. They literally mean like going to a Reddit forum and posting in the Reddit your character's turns in action. That sounds fun. I'm all over the fucking place with ideas today. That's why I do, and it's so fun because I love Minecraft for that. Because in Minecraft, I can actually do that. I've played Minecraft for so long that it's just muscle memory for the most part, and I can audibly muse, basically talk to myself. uh, and did I get any saplings? I got one sapling. I need more saplings. I thought axes were supposed to provide saplings. I thought if you farmed these with axes, it was supposed to drop saplings more, but it's not doing that. Well, I can't really tell either. Oh, I am getting. Wait, maybe it's the hoe. You know what I could do since I've got my shears with me and I don't really need them anymore. Let's just do this. Then I could take it back to my base and farm them out myself. That would be okay. That would be just all right with me. Um, we should be careful though. I don't know if it's just me, but I oftentimes wonder if creepers are drawn to the sound of rustling leaves. But yeah, so when I first got introduced to Minecraft, it was like, hey, this is kind of like playing D&D, a sandbox, literally. Um, I don't know. But yeah, so I was thinking about, getting back into tabletop RPGs, and one of the best ways to do it is to play solo. There are some very generic rules out there. There's the one-page solo engine, which can manage everything from setting up an initial scene to managing NPCs to monsters to basically it's a dungeon master or game master emulator, and it's actually really cool. I do actually prefer the one-page solo engine over pretty much any other solo engine that isn't bespoke, meaning that it's not stuff made for specifically the game for a game like um, Dragonbane from Free League has its own solo engine. designed for it. And it's actually really cool. Really, what you only need to do is need to just ask the questions like you would. Like everything else, playing the game solo is just like playing the game, in a group or in a pair. RPGs are a game of conversation, and from that conversation, the adventure unfolds, and from that adventure, later on, a story is told. So it's a storyteller, or we like a narrative game. Um, all games are narrative. All games are narrative. You're whether it's in the game world itself that is the narrative, or it is the recollection of the game experience afterwards. Um, I think I got this whole map sorted out except for that little spit of land just south, just about southwest of my camp. Well, southwest of my camp. All right, so we're gonna make landfall and get ready for the evening. I just collected another. That's okay. We want that. This is it. Yes. Yes. This is it. Oh, you know what I'm gonna do? Because I wanted to find out. I think you can feed frogs. All right, so we're gonna go pick up that last couple of polygons. So yeah, free preview now available. Whoops, I went into a circle 'cause I am not looking at the screen. Distracted driving. Um, Now I did get into AD&D because, I figured, well, let's just be a big boy now because I'm in high school. And I did play a few games of it, but I didn't find it very fluid. Again, I was talking about elegant mechanics. Now, some people might think that it's way too simplistic and you can't solve everything with just a single die roll, but I've always felt that you can. And I learned that from playing GURPS, Steve Jackson's generic universal role-playing game system, um, role-playing system. And it's not, it's not, uh, it's not difficult to do that. Um, I just never felt that rolling a die to hit and then rolling a die to do damage, and that die being of a variable, size. I mean, I get it with a dagger versus a longsword and stuff like that, but let's really think about this. Um, your to hit should determine how strong or how effective your attack was. And I know it takes a lot of skill to do so, but I am sure there have been more than a few um, fights between a dagger and a sword where the dagger wins. Mostly because real sword fights aren't this banging sticks bullshit that you see in Hollywood. Um, it really is, real sword fights are pretty dirty. They're throwing dirt, they're knocking objects over in front of their opponents, they're doing all kinds of stuff. It's a full active sport, and the people who just dance around poking and slashing, they're not really sword fighting. It's called fencing. To be honest, doesn't matter if it's with a broadsword, a bastard sword, or a foil. It's still fencing. Um, but yeah, so finding game systems that you roll to hit and damage happens um, is really cool. Now I do like the Powered by Apocalypse system. With PBTA, you roll a d6. One, two, and three is a fail. A four or five is a success with consequences or costs, and a six is a complete success. So if you look at that in terms of combat, you could say a one or two is a miss, complete miss. You deal no damage whatsoever. A three or four, you do one harm or 1 point of damage or a light wound. Um, a four, five, or six, you do something a little bit more severe. Now, if you're playing with a dagger, you could set the wound threshold to light. Although, if it's dagger on dagger, I don't know. I mean, you can kill someone with a dagger. All it takes is one good strike against a vital organ, and then that's it. So I guess the real question would be, how skilled are you with the dagger versus how skilled the person is with the sword? Um, because that would make the biggest difference. And these are the kinds of conversations that my friends and I had in high school and then later in college when we were going through all the different role playing games that had come out. And a lot of them, I think a role playing game, if you want to call it a role playing game, because you're playing the role of a character and you're doing social interactions, but yet most of your game is based upon combat statistics and effectiveness, then that's not a role playing game. That's a combat adventure game. And I like playing those kinds of games. And an RPG really is more of a kind of a journaling experience. Um, but you're not like, live journaling because, I mean, honestly, if you had five people, and that's the other thing too, these play groups of 5 to 8 players, that's ridiculous. One, any nerd in the 80s and 90s who had more than 3 friends was not a nerd anymore. And two, getting anything more than 3 or 4 friends together to play with you uh, would have been a struggle even then. It's kind of like, you know, I think that's why when Magic the Gathering came around, I I just basically dove straight into that because you didn't need to have anybody but one other person to play with. And of course, I eventually fell out of playing Magic the Gathering because, well, I didn't have anybody to play with. And then recently, about 3, 4 years ago during COVID, I had rediscovered an Inquest article called Deep IQ. Get it? Inquest IQ. IQ was their logo um, for the magazine. And this is a magazine about trading card games in general, not just Magic the Gathering. But anyway, Deep IQ, I can't remember the editor's name, so I apologize for that lack of information. Um, but in Deep IQ, you could you rolled on a series of tables that got progressively harder as the game went on. Uh, and you played against that. You played against a monster that had tokens. And then later on, Magic the Gathering created what were they called challenge decks, which honestly were pretty damn good. I didn't get to play the event that they had come out because at the time I was not at shops anymore. I was playing more Warhammer 40,000 with my brother and our friends, and that was kind of just the cycle that went through. Um, I don't play Warhammer 40K anymore, but I do play a lot of Warhammer Quest, which, coincidentally enough, has a lot of solo modes in it. You know what? I think 12 is good enough. We're just going to go ahead and pop all these. I don't really mind it too much. And I'm going to grab. Where did I put those blocks of dirt? I know I set some up around here somewhere. Let's go ahead and grab about. Well, I think 12 blocks is enough. We'll do 12 berries, 12 blocks. But yeah, the point being is that I've been going back into tabletop gaming instead of video gaming. Um, and it's kind of fun too because it's like a lot of people have to make the distinction of TTRPGs versus RPGs because in the 80s and 90s, video role-playing games became really popular with Bethesda and Nintendo uh, producing some of the more iconic versions. Let's go ahead. Let's see. Where do we want to be? Where do we want to be? Okay, that's north. That's east. So if this is northeast, then this is where I start my. There we go. Perfect. And I'm going to go ahead and dig out some blocks. Oops, that was not what I wanted to do. Hope that doesn't disrupt the chain. It's superstition. I don't think it really makes that much of a difference anymore in Bedrock, but it's something I've always done. So I like doing it. So that's not going to stop the spread of that puzzle kind of stuff, but it is basically just so that when I plant, when this grows and I have to replant, I know exactly where to plant them. And that's good. They're there. All right, so I have 12 here, so I'm going to go for 8 here. I'm going to have to murder some cows. What do we got here in the garden so far? Nothing, of course. Cool thing about getting a spruce farm going will be all the extra mulch I can create. Bone meal, excuse me. I should be more cautious. I don't want to have a problem with creepers. All right, let's go make our set of armor. We did it. And we'll make a copper tool. We did it. Wait, what do we got here? Is that a lightning rod? That is a lightning rod. That's excellent. Can't make a copper lantern, can we? Let's find out. No, I can make copper chain. I can make a copper trapdoor and a copper door. What if that works as like iron? But you can't make a copper lantern. That is a sin. That is a sin, honestly. You should be able to make a copper lantern. All right, so we're gonna use a copper pick, and I think we're good here for the most part. Yay! Now I have armor. All right, so I have completed my map. So now I get the choice. I can either go one more map over and start exploring out that way, a full map, or I can expand this map to size 4. And I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to go take this up to size 4. Let's see. I need some sugar cane. There we go. So we're going to go ahead and pop a block, and we're going to make some paper. They really should change the shapes here a little bit more. For a person who's, relying on readers for my glasses, I use glasses. I don't when I video game for some reason. It seems to cause me more grief than actual help. All right, so this is my map, and here we go. I think that's the largest you can go, isn't it? Oh, that is a whole lot more map to explore. um, yeah, suddenly lodestones. Suddenly a lodestone seems to be really important. Unfortunately, I don't have any redstone, so that's not happening anytime soon. All right, so what I need to remember is that copper picks can't mine anything other than raw ore, except for diamond, emerald, redstone. I can't get any of that. I have to have iron. Now, this would probably take 100 days to fully explore that. What is that? Is that the whole map, the whole world? What do we got here? We got, what is that? One. What is that? Let's see. One, two. So, nine maps across. This is a world that'll be 9 by 9. That is a lot. I don't know that I want to do that much, but I suppose it wouldn't be a problem. Well, all it means is that right now on this map quest, the challenge is done. So I am free to explore anywhere else I want. I'm gonna have to really rely on coordinates here. So let's go ahead and take a screen cap for coordinates sake. And I'm gonna take a break. Catch you guys in a little bit.